Live from Orlando, Florida, you're now listening to the OZone Podcast, the voice of Orlando Magic fans. Join us every week for a unique fan perspective on all of the latest Magic news and updates. The show starts now.
What's up, Magic fans, and welcome back to another episode of the OZone Podcast, brought to you by DraftKings and part of the Basketball Podcast Network. We're your hosts, Al, myself, Anthony. Today is Friday, April 22nd. What's up, Al?
What's going on?
What's up? In today's episode, we are talking Terrence Ross comments. Dude is publicly coming out, letting it be known that he wants out of Orlando. We're also going to be breaking down and hitting up the tankathon.com simulation. We're going to start bringing that up as we get closer and closer to the NBA draft lottery, breaking down Jabari Smith. And then we're going to talk a little bit about T-Mac's comments on our Orlando Magic team. So that kind of cool with him talking about the Orlando Magic and kind of breaking down, what he said. But before we get into that, a couple things that we kind of got out in the air. We saw Markelle Fultz training with Lethal Shooter. We weren't exactly sure the timeline of when he was aware. We don't know if it was in the offseason before this season. We don't know if it was throughout the season. We don't know if it was directly immediately after. We really don't know the timeline. But what are your thoughts on the fact that you have someone that is considered one of the best shooting coaches out there right now working with Markelle Fultz? And granted, this is a guy that has worked with Dwight Howard, Cole Anthony Davis. So he's someone that's really, really out there. But what are your thoughts on him working with Markelle Fultz?
I mean, I think it's something that we have all wanted to see happen. I know a lot of Magic fans had mentioned it to me. I have some friends of mine who are big-time Magic fans, and they've always told me, like, this is the right coach for Markelle. Like, how can we make that happen? And surprise, surprise, the season ends. Right the next day, we get that video on Instagram, right from his Instagram feed. And again, it kind of makes sense. That mid-range shot looked so good.
Beautiful.
You could tell that he had been spending a lot of time working on it. Now, to me personally, the biggest surprise was on the video. If you haven't seen it yet, you can go on YouTube, go on our Twitter, Instagram feed. You can see it. But his three-point shot looked incredible when he was practicing with him. Unfortunately, when he played in the games, it didn't quite look like that. So that tells me that he's getting comfortable with his regular kind of motion and shooting release from three-point shot. But as of right now, we haven't seen it in a game. What did you think about that? Because to me, that was the one part of the video that I was like, whoa, if he can shoot like that at the NBA level in the middle of a game, that's a game changer for us.
I think it makes it hard because I really wish that we had the timestamp of when that video was sent, because when it was posted, he posted it as if, kind of congratulating Markelle Fultz in a sense and just giving a moment of appreciation for Markelle Fultz at the end of the season. So we really don't know when it happened. I'm a little confused, not necessarily confused, but when it comes to Lethal Shooter, we really don't have any statistics. Like, what are the facts? Like, how well did this individual player start hitting his shots after he started working with Lethal Shooter? This is someone that, obviously maximized the capacity of being someone that has gone viral, because you've seen the videos of this dude shooting on spiked hoops, moving basketball hoops, just a whole bunch of crazy things that you would never do in a basketball game, obviously, because it's out there. But we really don't know how much of an effect that he really, does in helping these players become better shooters. But we know he can shoot. We know he's legit. He was someone that has played professional basketball. I want to say that he had some type of tryout with the NBA, but never really fully made it to the league, something along those lines. But I wish that there was some type of data that we can go based off of. But I think the fact that, Markelle's working with any shooting coach is awesome, because this is, a shooting coach that's not affiliated with the Orlando Magic. So Markelle is going out of his way to make sure that is, an area that he's focusing on to try and get better. And if this dude Lethal Shooter is the best in the game and he's working with Markelle, it's only up from there. And, it's good news for us.
100%. I think that's all you can ask for. Unfortunately, we don't know, like you said, we don't know when this took place. If I had to guess, hair looks a little shorter. He mentioned that he was recovering from his ACL, so we can kind of assume that it was throughout his recovery. It wasn't, very, very recent. But my hope is that he goes back this summer. He's finally fully healthy. The shoulder shouldn't be an issue. The knee shouldn't be an issue. Man, go out there and spend 2 months with this guy if you need to and get that shot down. Because again, what we saw from the mid-range and even the free throw line, we're forgetting about that. Markelle Fultz could not shoot free throws when he was in Philadelphia a few years back. This dude shot over 80% this season. And last year he was in the high 70s. So again, the progression is there. We like what we're seeing. It just has to increase that motion, that high release has to extend a few more feet. And again, he'll be a game changer for Markelle. And mind you, we don't need him to shoot 40% from three-point range. All he needs to do is average, 32 to 35% from three-point range. And you can't guard this dude because now he can fly by you and finish inside. He can dunk on you, and he can shoot it from 3 too. So if he can develop that over the summer or over the next couple of years, that's going to be massive, massive for the Orlando Magic.
Yeah, I think something that you have to at least give him credit for is that he has confidence in shooting it. He doesn't hesitate, as much as you think he would. He takes a shot. He's not afraid of it. Like certain players that we know that are out there in the NBA that don't want to take it. Like he at least, goes out there and he shows that that is a part of his game. No matter how you're looking at his statistics, no matter, how the shot actually looks like, it's again, he acknowledges the fact that it's still an area that he needs to improve. And he went out there and he at least tried to shoot it, go into the offseason and keep working on it. Now, just taking a step back real quick, the NBA playoffs is definitely going on right now, and it's been some really good basketball out there. And right before we get into talking about Terrence Ross and his comments, what are some of the things that surprise you about the NBA playoffs right now?
3 things for me. I'm going to start with our good friends up north, the Toronto Raptors. They're about to get swept. I did not expect that. I understand that Barnes got hurt.
They're going to blame it on that. They're going to say it's because they don't have their rookie of the year.
I don't want to hear it. We beat the Milwaukee Bucks without JI, without AG. I don't want to hear it. That's a lame excuse. Remember, we won that game with Gary Clark and James Ennis as our starting 3 and 4. So stopping Giannis, not an excuse. My point is, man, like I don't get it. Like I expected better from the Raptors. I'm going to end it there. 3-0 that series. The next one, Celtics and Brooklyn. Did not expect the Celtics would be up 2-0. I'm actually really, really excited about what I've seen from the Boston Celtics. That defense on KD has been on another level. Did not expect that one bit. I think they'll bounce back a little bit, but if you ask me, I think the Celtics have shocked the world, and I think they might complete that series win. And finally, my Golden State Warriors, man. Stephen Curry off the bench. But they're just lighting it up right now. Jordan Poole has taken it to another level in the playoffs. He looks like Stephen Curry's son out there. It's incredible. How do you guard that team, with Draymond, Wiggins, Poole, Clay, and Steph? That team has looked unbeatable right now. You're seeing Phoenix kind of hurting a little bit. Booker's going to miss some weeks. Does that impact, the race in the playoffs as we go along here? Remember, Chris Paul always gets hurt, it seems like, in the playoffs. So is he going to have to carry the load now and possibly put a toll on his body? He's getting older. So I think the Warriors have a really, really good chance here to advance. And I'm hoping that's the case. Because again, as you know, I'm a huge Curry fan. And without the Magic in the playoffs, that's what I'm rooting for.
You know what surprised me the most? Just how much, and I guess this postseasons where it kind of reminded me how important these play-in tournaments are, because it's no longer, I got to make it into the 8th spot. It's really, you gotta make it to the 8th spot. And you got to make sure that you stay in that 8th spot, because you got teams 9 to 10 that are hungry enough to where they can knock you out. The Cavs were a team that, we looked at this season as, man, they took a really big leap from where they were last season to now, being in playoff contention, and they get into the play-in and they completely let it slip out of their fingers. So us taking a look at kind of where the Orlando Magic are at right now, I see us making that big leap in where we can be comfortable. And although it has not been said by the front office, we're comfortable enough to say out loud that, hey, the play-in tournament is something that should be and will be a goal for this team. but it's not enough. Like you have to actually go in there and do damage and play hard, and just making it to the 7th and 8th seed is not, it's not enough to be in the playoffs. Is now the play-in is such a big deal that it's tough for teams like the Hornets and the Cavs that, you know, play really good basketball, and just they couldn't show up for that moment.
Yeah, think about the Clippers too. Another team that I think everyone had on the radar. They played well all year. Honestly, better than the Lakers throughout the whole season. And then last game of the season, the second playing game, Paul George out with COVID symptoms, whatever it may be, and now boom, they're out of the playoffs.
Goodness.
So it's funny because I like it and I dislike it. I like it, you know, because again, the competition that it adds, you're seeing the ratings in the NBA at all-time high right now. I think the play-in has something to do with that. But my concern is if my team, like the Magic, let's say, we play so well next season, and then we are 6 games ahead of the 9th seed or 10th seed, but all of a sudden, one of our players misses a week or two because of a sprained ankle, a
That's
key
all it
player.
takes.
That's all it takes, man. So I feel like 6 months comes down to 2 games. It's kind of rough, you know. So I see it both ways. I like the competition. I like the energy that is added. But at the same time, I feel like it's unfair to some teams that have a huge gap between the 7th, 8th, and the 9th and 10th. And yet you lose a couple games and you're out. But again, that's what competition is about. The NBA is trying to innovate and do things differently. Gotta at least give
It,
props for that.
it's fun. It's fun to watch. And if you're that
It
team
is.
that barely makes it in and makes it to that 10th spot, and you got a chance to still make it into the playoffs, like that's, I feel as if something were to happen and that's kind of where we land. You don't want to see the Orlando Magic as the 10th seed. Not with this team that we know that we're going to end up having. Like
Hmm.
you don't want us to be in that position. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see how that all plays out. Because again, nobody is safe in that play-in tournament. Nobody is safe, and I think that it's a neat element to have because there's so much, like it almost feels like March Madness for
It
those play-in
does.
tournaments because it's
And
not a
then
7-game series. It's really one, and then you're moving on to the next. You know.
and think about this too. A team like the Pelicans who struggled all year, barely got in. They find a way to get in, and now they're 1-1, 1-1 with Phoenix. And again, like I said earlier, Booker's now hurt. So now it changes the whole dynamic of the series. All of a sudden, it's like, hey, we have a chance. So again, that's the fun part out of all this is that those teams that you do nothing to have a chance, all of a sudden have a chance. So it makes it fun to watch for sure.
And really big ups to the Pelicans because that addition of CJ McCollum, my goodness, it's a reminder
Incredible.
that you can have a team that can really feel like they're one piece away and can really change everything. It kind of makes me think that what if the Magic would have made, you know, that move for a player like that with the Vooch, Evan Fournier, Aaron Gordon, like what if they would have made a move to be able to kind of give them that offensive support, because that was always the issue. The issue was, you know, we couldn't find that one person outside of Nikola that can be consistent in being able to put and get us buckets. And
Listen,
just to kind of see how that, you know, kind of changed the way that we now view the Pelicans, and that's without Zion, is crazy.
that's been the issue with the Magic for what now, 12 years? So it feels like we just cannot get a scorer. And that's why we'll talk about it in the next few weeks. I know we don't want to throw the chips in the middle just yet. We're kind of still building this thing, but at some point, you got to get a guy that can drop 25 a night, guaranteed every night. Because again, it changes the whole team. Look at the Pelicans. All of a sudden, a threat in the West. A few months ago, 9-game, 10-game losing streaks. One guy can change everything. So, to your point, at some point, we'll get there.
Yeah. Speaking of offensive players, let's jump into Terrence Ross. So, Terrence Ross once out of Orlando. No surprise. We all kind of knew that was the case, but now it's public. It feels like my man's on a media tour to make sure, like, yo, Ja, it's enough. Enough is enough. Like, don't let it pass this season. I need you guys to move me. And it's strange to hear because you really don't hear this coming out of players out of the Orlando Magic. Like the last time we really heard that was Aaron Gordon, but we already knew he was out the door. And then
Hmm.
before that was, you know, Dwight Howard, but you really don't hear that. And what's interesting is that, you know, Terrence Ross has been saying it, and I'm going to quote him in just a moment. But he's not saying it in a bad way, which at the very least we can respect. He's not saying that he's unhappy. He's not saying that he hates it here. He's not saying that we did him dirty. He's not saying any of that. He's just saying that it's time to move on. We're at that point. So Terrence Ross was recently on the Buckets podcast, and he said, speaking about the Orlando Magic, they're in a rebuild, and I'm kind of past that stage. If I was younger on the contract before this one, it'd be a different story. But I've kind of already done that. I'm 10 years in. Time is kind of going against me at this point, and I don't want to stay in another rebuild. But it's been great here. I've had fun. I've had my chance to be a part of something where it was me and a couple other guys to take it as far as we could. We had some good runs. We had fun, but I'm ready to transition into something else. What are your thoughts on Terrence Ross's comments?
Surprising. You know, when that first trade deadline happened, Vooch, Gordon, Fournier getting traded, I forgot the gift that he did, that he tweeted, but it was basically, I survived. I didn't get traded. This trade deadline, I'm still here. He made kind of fun about the situation that he was still in Orlando, which made me think as a fan that he doesn't want to leave. He wants to be in Orlando, and he's kind of defied the odds. We all kept talking about it. People kept tagging him, saying goodbye to him. I was one of those. I tagged him and said, hey, man, thank you for all the memories. I really thought this trade deadline, he was done with Orlando. But to hear this come out, it's kind of strange because he's basically going back to the trade deadline when Vooch got traded and Gordon got traded and saying, I was next. They just didn't get to me. And then saying this trade deadline, I'm not sure why they didn't do it. I really thought they were going to. That didn't quite happen. And now basically saying, it's over. I'm ready to transition to a different team. Not quite asking for a trade, but basically saying, I'm done in Orlando. The fan in me will always be thankful to Terrence Ross. The guy gave us a lot of great memories, especially in 2019, that playoff run. The Human Torch was born, and we'll always be thankful for those memories. But being realistic, there's no minutes for him anymore in this team. The way that we're going forward, there's not a rotation spot that he'll be happy in. He wants to be a six-man. I think, unfortunately, that role's going to go down to either Cole Anthony or Jalen Suggs at some point next year. So he's got to transition. He sees the writing in the wall. So thankful, again, appreciative for what he's done for this franchise. He was a great vet. He never voiced out his concerns about being in a Magic uniform. I kind of wish, though, he kept this to himself and waited until July. He's getting traded no matter what. I just don't like the fact that it's coming across like I'm out. And the media is being portrayed as Ross wants out of Orlando, when that's not really the case, but it's being portrayed as that now. What are your thoughts?
I mean, his defense, I'm pretty sure that he thought that he was supposed to be out with the group. And it didn't happen. We kept him around. He's an awesome vet. Played with us for 6 seasons. He's at least the shining spot that we got out of trading Victor Oladipo for Serge Ibaka. I still don't understand why. Anyways, Terrence Ross has been such a big part of what we tried to build. He's played really good basketball with us and on a team that desperately needed shooting. He kind of held that anchor for us. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I really don't want anything in return for Terrence Ross. I want us to be able to take Terrence Ross, ask him, where is it that you see that you would like to play? Reach out to those teams to see what type of move you could possibly make to send him there. And I don't care about a return. What I care about is when we're able to send him somewhere for a player that has done so well for us for a long time. He's a fan favorite. And 2, hoping that kind of builds really good reputation for the Orlando Magic and how we treat our players. I think that that's really important. And I think that, that does go a long way. It's a shame that we're at a point where we publicly have to say that he's ready for something else. He's ready to move on. But I get it. The dude thought that he was going to be traded 2-3 times already. It has not happened. Us talking about reality is, the reason why we haven't traded him, I don't believe it's because we wanted to keep him to be the vets for the young guys. I believe that we expected a certain value for Terrence Ross, and we didn't get that value, so we're going to keep him. It was reported by The Athletic that we were looking for a first-round pick for Terrence Ross. even if it was a late first round pick. We didn't get that. So we know that Terrence Ross were in conversations, there were talks, but it takes two to tango, and we did not get that return for Terrence Ross. So what do you do at this point? At this point, you keep trying. But question is, how long are we going to wait? Are we looking at Terrence Ross how far into the season? There was moments in last season where in the beginning of the season we're like, what's up with T. Ross? Why is he
Yep.
why is he not playing the same level of basketball? We understood the reasons why, but we weren't used to seeing that. So, as much as I wish this wasn't like publicly out there, and it kind of feels like it's now being campaigned from the podcast to the Orlando Sentinel. It's a shame that it's gotten to that point, but I respect it. I respect the way that he's going about it, and I think that there's no harm feelings either way.
Let me ask you this: you think we've seen the last of Terrence Ross in a Magic uniform, or do you think there's a chance that he starts the season and then gets traded?
No,
right?
Why?
I think this pretty much settles it.
But I think that's a strategy. I think it's a strategy from his camp that, all right, this is it. And I get it, man. The dude's already in his early 30s. Like, how much more? This is probably going to be the last. After this contract, it's his last real big one.
Yep.
And he's a player that knows his role. He knows what he's good at. He knows he's going to shoot the ball. He knows he's going to come off the bench. He even said it. He's like, I want to come off the bench and get buckets. That's what he wants to do. That's what he's good at. It's called the Human Torch. Go in there, get hot, hit baskets.
I just wonder where he wants to go. Because again, contenders wise, there's many out there, right? But I wonder where he wants to be. I think his wife has said multiple times.
Honestly, I think he wants to go back to Toronto.
I think so too. I don't think the family would mind that. Although his wife keeps talking about how she's enjoying the warm weather and all these things. So I don't know, but it's going to be interesting.
Toronto or one of the LA teams.
Yeah, I can see the Clippers making a run. But like I said, I just wouldn't expect, as a Magic fans that are listening or watching us on YouTube, don't expect a big return for Terrence Ross. I think our front office will do the right thing. The only way I see us getting a solid return back is if we package T. Ross with those 2 second-round picks that we have that are pretty good assets, and maybe one of the young guys, and make it kind of like a package deal for a vet or a younger guy that's disgruntled in their situation. But I don't think Terrence Ross by himself is going to get you a solid return at this point. I could be wrong. Maybe Boston comes around and says, hey, Neesmith's not doing anything for us. Take him. We're trying to win championships. I would love that, by the way.
Yeah. The only thing that I'm a little concerned about is the team definitely needs vets. Mm-hmm. And it's just really hard for me to envision what vets would fit best with this young core that's available. You and I, we were kind of looking at, the free agency, this upcoming free agency class. It's not good. It's not good at all. It's not like there's no one jumping out of that page that you're saying, man, we really need this player on this team. It's going to really help this guy. It's none of that. Zero. So I can start seeing that it's more and more likely that, the Magic may pursue Gary Harris, may give him another contract to try and convince him to stay, if that's something that he wants. I can see that happening. What I don't want is fillers. I felt like Robin Lopez was a filler.
Each one more.
Yeah. You take a look at like the Grizzlies. Steven Adams is a perfect fit for that young team. Like, you need to be able to have that type of blend. I'm not saying go out there and trade for Steven Adams. What I'm saying is, a quality vet that can really, really do well for the young guys.
Yeah.
Terrence Ross, in my opinion, is someone that could do that. Maybe not at that level, but someone that would bring positive impacts in the locker room and on the floor. But I understand the reasons. But it'll be interesting to see what they end up doing with T. Ross.
I think if I was a betting man, I would say 60-40 right now in favor of Gary Harris coming back if T. Ross is gone. Now, we have way too many young guys, and they all need minutes. So if you bring back Harris, you pretty much got already the backcourt completed. Like, you got Markelle, Cole, Suggs, Gary Harris, Franz, Chuma. Like, you have the backcourt kind of just filled already. So free agency, what do? trades. What do you do? So it's kind of, you have to consolidate. Again, I love all the dudes that we have on our team, all of them, but all of them need minutes in order to progress and develop. So that's the issue that we're having right now. It's like, how do you bring a vet in without impacting the growth of a young player? It's hard because we have young guys at every position that need minutes and that have a bright future. It makes it really challenging. But I get what you're saying. Ideally, you bring a guy that's going to play and be a part of the success or the failure of our team. And that vet, is involved. He wants to win. He wants to compete. I think Gary Harris is that guy. But does he want to come back? I think by Ross saying these things, I got a feeling that maybe he already has been told what the future may be like. So we'll see what happens. But I think Gary Harris would be a great fit. Guy, by all we know in Denver, was beloved by his teammates. Was a great guy when he was playing and healthy in Orlando. So some great things that we saw from him in his short stint with the Magic this past season. Let's see.
Yeah, I wouldn't be mad at all if we brought back Gary Harris. I know it's not splashy and people may not, jump out of their seats for it, but he's someone that's already accustomed with the players. He's someone that, can go on the court and be able to really play well, because we saw in the beginning that he struggled, but then we started to see some really good basketball coming out of him. So we'll wait to see what ends up happening on that front. He is an unrestricted free agent, so he has that choice. Who knows? Maybe he doesn't want to stay with the Magic. At the same time, this is an opportunity for him to be able to go out there and find a long-term contract and get paid out. So we'll see. Now, kind of jumping into Tracy McGrady. So Tracy McGrady, we talked about this, I want to say it must have been like 5 or 6 episodes ago, more or less. But Tracy McGrady is coming out with his professional one-on-one basketball league. So he's going out and doing a little press tour with that. And he has some things to say about the Orlando Magic core. He said, we got some great young pieces. We got some great young pieces for us, man. It's just about being healthy. And when we are healthy, can they form great chemistry and bring it to the court? So I think that what I love most about Tracy McGrady's comments is that he says, we got some great young pieces. And he says, for us. So he really embodies the claiming of Orlando Magic is my team. Granted, we do also give him a paycheck.
Yep.
But what are your thoughts on that?
I want to know how much he's getting paid, just because I need T-Mac more involved. It will be amazing for the fan base. It will be amazing for the young guys that looked up to him when they were kind of growing up and seeing his highlights. I mean, you got to be excited, right? So T-Mac is a guy that we know his influence. He was seen training a few years ago now with J.I. and how excited he was about that. So I think we just need to see more of T-Mac overall. Like you said, he is getting a paycheck by the Magic. Maybe they can increase that a little bit in order to see him more often around the team, because it helps. When he talks in the media about the Magic in a positive way, it helps. So in my opinion, really sweet, it's really simple. It's good to see. I just want to see more of it. How about you?
Yeah, I would. I want him to work with Jonathan Isaac as much as possible. Can we duplicate what T-Mac has done into Jonathan Isaac? That would be great. Jonathan Isaac would have to also be healthy, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. You're right. I wish that T-Mac was more involved. I look at players that I wish the Magic kind of found a way to bring over, players like Darrell Armstrong, players like Jameer Nelson. But I think that it's good to be able to have someone like T-Mac, that he's in the national media, ESPN, and when he has opportunities to speak about the Magic, for the most part, since he's been receiving a paycheck, he says really nice things about us. And it doesn't happen too often in national media, so I will 100% take it.
For sure. Like I said, we just need more of it. Another thing too, just thinking the other day, what would it take for the Magic to just hire him to be like a sideline, not a sideline, but like the pregame, the halftime shows? Give me T-Mac. Like I love Q Rich and all that good stuff, but
he won't do it. He's too big. He's too big time.
Yeah, but I think if you give him the right amount of money, he'll do it, man. I just think we need more Magic legends, but from recent memory. Like I don't want, again, Bo Outlaw, Nick Anderson, love him to death, but the younger generation has no affiliation to those guys. Give me Jameer Nelson. Heck, JJ Redick is too big now, but that would have been a great get if you could have paid him to do our media stuff. But again, the Magic don't make those flashy moves, man. We kind of keep it very low key.
Yeah, we got Q Rich.
His podcast is killing it, that's for sure. But we can do better.
All right, so we're going to jump into our tankathon.com. If you haven't done this, it's definitely a lot of fun. This is where we end up doing the simulation to kind of see what our NBA draft lottery potential could be. So we're going to try and do this every single episode because this at least gets us an idea of where we're at, and then we can probably keep a tally on it and kind of see, what it looks like before the NBA lottery. So let's take a spin. Let's see if we get lucky. Go ahead, Al.
Let's take a look. You ready for this?
Not really.
Before
Not
we
really.
start, what are you predicting? What are you predicting?
So the lowest we can drop is 6.
Yep.
So I've always said it. I don't need number 1. Just give me top 3. Give me top 3 and I'll be happy.
Let's hope for that. Let's do it. First edition of 2022. Let's do it.
First one. And
we dropped one.
We dropped 1. So with the 2022 NBA draft, the Orlando Magic select number 3. It's not bad. I'll take 3.
But you know what's funny with this one? Charlotte jumped 12 spots.
12. My goodness.
Indiana jumped to number 2. So they jumped 3 spots. Orlando got 3. OKC stayed at 4. Houston dropped to 5. Detroit dropped to 6. So to those of you that are big time fans of the Magic tanking, these are the risks. This time it worked. But as you will see over the next 4 weeks, it can get scary. I know a few people on Twitter are doing this. Phil with Orlando Magic Daily is doing it. The Six Man Show is doing it daily, posting their recaps. And man, it's scary how many times I've seen 6 for the Orlando Magic. So in this scenario, let's assume Chet, I don't even know. Who do you think will be gone in this scenario?
Yeah, I don't see, like, I know that there's so many different mock drafts out there, and it seems like no one's on the same page. It's because nobody really knows. You got people going Jabari 1, you have Jabari dropping, I've seen as low as 3. So you really don't know how it's going to fall. But I think that realistically, we're looking at Jabari 1, Paolo 2, and then we're looking at, Chet 3. But I've seen Chet drop to 6. I think it was Fox News or Fox Sports mock draft that had him dropping to 6. So you really, nobody knows. Nobody knows. And I think that teams really don't have a full understanding yet until you start bringing these guys in and working them out. Because I think that that's where you're really going to see, how you feel about these players. Because it's not just about their workouts. They're going in there, they're talking to them, they're checking out their mindset. They're really getting a feel for these players. And I'm curious to see with Jabari, with Paolo, with Chet, how many workouts they really do. Because you normally have, I would imagine Jabari will only work out with, 2 teams max. Maybe us and one other team, when us in Houston, just to make sure he goes top. But it's gonna be interesting to see where it goes. But I think for the most part, we're solid at those 3.
Yeah. The weird thing is with the way that this simulation worked, Charlotte won. They've been needing a big time center for a while. So Chet makes sense for the Hornets, and you pair him up with LaMelo Ball. I mean, that would be ridiculous. The hype around that team. Indiana, they're kind of rebuilding, kind of not. But I could see Jabari Smith fitting in perfectly next to Miles Turner. Now, Orlando in that scenario, in the way I'm planning it out here, Paulo would drop to the Magic. So you would have Paulo, Ivy, or any one of those other guys that are kind of 5, 6, 7, kind of available to you. So I think in that situation, you got to go Paulo, right? You got to go best player available.
Have to go best player available. Have to.
Right.
Have to.
So I think I was going to say in this simulation, that's the way I'm playing it out. I think Chet goes 1, Jabari goes 2, and then we will be kind of left off with Ivy, Paulo, Sharp, any of those guys. And I think, again, like you said, I think Paulo would be the one for us based on what I'm looking at.
Yeah, I know that there's a lot of talks of, there just being such a massive drop, after the top 3. In my opinion, this whole season, and maybe not as dramatic, but this whole season of tanking goes out the window if we do not get into that top 3. In the simulation that we just had, there were only 2 teams that rose above where their predictions were supposed to be. that's what makes the lottery so difficult and so tough, is that you really have no control. You can really fall. This could really be worst case scenario for the Magic. This could be best case scenario for the Magic. And I just feel over the years we've always been that one pick away. And I'm just hoping that the fan base gets something to really be excited about. And to be excited, you really want one of those top three.
I think so
Badly.
too. And I like the way you put it to me when we've talked off the air. You've said you want the Magic to have a chance to pick their guy for once, not the leftovers. And I think if you pick 3 and below, at that point you're saying, okay, so Ivy jumped to 2, let's say. Cool, but maybe we liked Ivy a lot. Now we don't have that chance. Or hey, Sharp rose like crazy in the workouts and the interviews, and he's going number 2, and we're like, man, like we would love that guy. There's a lot of people that compare him to Jalen Green. Imagine him in Orlando. But all of a sudden, he went number 3. Now you can't get him if that's the guy you really wanted. So that's what I'm saying. Like I agree with you 100%. I want us to be able to say, hey, we made this pick. We had 8 guys in for workouts heavily over 3 weeks. This is our guy. We're gonna go with number 1 with him, no matter what happens. No matter if you're thinking that Paulo should be number 1, but if you're thinking that Chet's your guy, which by the way, Chet has been liking a lot of Magic posts. We know his connection with Jalen Suggs. A lot of people are thinking already that might be in the wall. That pick might be coming to Orlando. But again, if that's the case, I want to have the Magic have that opportunity to say that's our guy. We're gonna go with him, close the door, and move on. That's your guy going forward.
Yeah, the Ringer they were just recently talking about the Orlando Magic, and they made it clear that Chet should be the guy that the Orlando Magic end up drafting. They even made the analogy that if the Orlando Magic were to create a NBA prospect in a lab, they would create Chet. Everything about him. So
True.
there's a lot of talks of Chet just being very similar to Franz Wagner and Scotty Barnes, players that were decent in college but end up being way better basketball players in the NBA professionally. And they see Chet kind of having that same factor. There's also talks about, Jabari Smith maybe not really being that number 1 guy. They might just be more of a supporting cast, a number 2 guy. And I feel like the Orlando Magic need to have that one guy. Like we need that number 1. And I feel like we have players that could be that. But if you have an opportunity to be able to draft that, that's why as of right now, I am leaning towards Paolo because I feel like he could be that guy. Out of the top 3 of Chet, Paolo, and Jabari, I feel like Jabari would have the highest floor. Like out of the 3, I think no matter what, if all 3 of them were their worst, I think Jabari would be the best worst out of the 3.
Mm-hmm.
But I also feel like it would be Paolo, Chet, and then Jabari when we're talking about ceiling, like the highest. And I feel like that's just kind of the feeling that I have right now. But again, the more scouting reports that I read, the more highlight videotapes that I watch, I'm so easily convinced. You can ask me the same question next week, and my response will be completely different. And that's why, again, we need to be able to have one of those top 3. And you made a good point. The Orlando Magic do, and when I say you made a good point about talking about my point.
Yeah.
But for once, yes, just to reiterate it, the Orlando Magic need to be put in a position where they are able to draft their guy. I feel like Jalen Suggs was not that. I feel Franz Wagner was that. We drafted him a lot higher than people expected him to be. If the Orlando Magic ended up drafting Shaedon Sharpe with a number 1 pick, I wouldn't be upset. I'd be confused. I wouldn't be upset. And I wouldn't be upset because something happened that they made the decision that this is going to be the guy that they wanted.
Agree.
If that exact same thing happened with Ivy, I wouldn't be upset. I'd accept it because something happened that they decided that that's our guy. We made the decision. We picked him at the spot that we want him to pick because we know that he's going to do this for us. And that's all that I hope for. And I hope that, we get lucky enough to where we're able to make that type of decision. You find out in the NBA lottery.
Yeah, coming soon. We got 3-ish more weeks, so we're getting closer. But again, 100% agree with you. But it's funny you mentioned you saying that in every episode coming up, you may change your mind. I think if you're watching or listening to us and you played the last few episodes, You've said you like Paulo, you like Jabari, you like
I'm all
Chet.
over, bro. I'm all over the place. And if you are not all over the place and you're not doing enough research,
But you know what?
that
That
is
kind of
fact.
scares me. Because if the Magic get the first pick and they draft X player, you're going to have a room half of booze, half of excitement, because we are all, honestly, and me and you have been texting offline, and we'll be like, hey, I really like this kid. And then next day I'm like, wait, but I really like this kid. So it's one of those things where I don't know where to go. Now, I will tell you, and this may sound weird to you, if Sharp is who he is supposed to be, and he really is comparable to a guy like Jalen Green, and he proves that in the workouts, in his interviews, I feel like he's the best fit to the current roster that we have. So if you really are thinking that you know that J.I. really is healthy and that Wendell is that guy and that Mo Bamba's coming back, it's tough to bring another forward into the equation. So he fits what we got going on. But like you said, best player available. If you go to the workouts and you say, hey, man, Chet is unbelievable. Or hey, Paulo, it's ridiculous. We got to go with this guy. Then you got to make moves. You cannot just add a rookie, number 1 pick or number 2 pick, and then say, hey, you're backing up J.I. You're backing up Wendell. Because it doesn't look right for the fan base, for the player himself. So that's where I'm kind of confused. And again, our fan base as a whole, you go on Twitter and it's so many mixed reactions. Team Paulo, Team Chat, Team Jabari.
Nobody's agreeing with nobody.
And that's the
It
issue
is
with
so
that's the
open.
issue with this draft. It's that this draft is a clear cut. You don't have a Zion, you don't have a LeBron, you don't have a Anthony Davis. There's really 5 guys that you can name that you don't know who's going to be the best one of those 5, and that's kind of scary because if you do get that number 1 pick, you may have missed because the 4th guy became the best player of the whole
Correct.
draft. But
Correct.
again, I'm trusting the front office. They've proven they can draft pretty well. It's just a matter of hopefully we don't drop. We want to have the say.
I mean, if you're comparing to this past NBA draft that we just had, a lot of people weren't saying that this was the greatest NBA draft class that we've had in a long while, and you were able to get some really high quality players from that draft. You're looking at 5, 6 players that were really really great quality basketball players, and you're right. If you're the number 1 pick, you have so much room for error, so much room for error. And unfortunately, we are not in a position where we can afford making those errors. I think for the Magic, what makes it hard, especially if you're passionate about the team, is that you're still rooting for the guys that you have. You're still rooting for Cole Anthony to pan out, Jalen Suggs, even R.J. Hampton. No matter your feelings about Mo Bamba, you're still rooting for him. You're hoping that they're able to meet the expectations that we set for these guys. And it makes it hard because that this draft makes it challenging for them to do it to the point, and we've discussed this, the team eventually is going to have to make decision on some of these guys. And what makes it hard is that your top 3 picks, the projection, Paolo, Jabari, Chet, that what if Jonathan Isaac comes back healthy and we never see this man injured again? What about Wendell Carter? Dude came out of Chicago, injured all the time, new beginning, played his ass off for the Orlando Magic, and you're someone that you really see, being an anchor for this team in the future. You don't want to take anything away from him either. At the same time, the Magic cannot afford to not obtain as much valuable assets as possible. It's just, I know it's going to be really difficult, and thank God I'm not part of that front office because they're going to have to make decisions. I'm just happy I'm not the one making them.
Yeah, I think the way to best look at it as you're saying these things is playing in my head. We are in a situation where we're collecting assets right now. But do know at some point we're going to have to cash in. And Jeff Weltman said that recently in his only interview that he did after the season, saying, we're not quite ready to cash in yet. We haven't done that yet. But we do have plenty of young guys, cap space, future draft picks. At some point, it's going to happen, right? You're kind of just waiting for the right opportunity. And again, you can't play 13 young guys. Just can't happen. So at some point, you have to make that move. But I don't think it happens this offseason. But we are getting closer to seeing how that will play out.
If you're looking at realistically, we know that Jabari is who people are really seeing and what we've seen most common as the potential number one pick. If you were to say, if you were to put in a graph chart, we would say that Jabari would win that poll, right? From what you've seen, what is it that you would say people like the most about a player like Jabari?
So for me personally, based on my research and my videos that I've watched, number one thing that impressed me was his own head coach, Bruce Pearl, saying that he's the best player he's ever coached. And this is a guy that has coached many, many years in college. Number two, that fits the Magic mold, his defense. He's known for bringing energy every night. He competes, flies around the floor, fights through screens, and rotates to help in the paint. Who does that remind you of? When you hear those words in the defensive end, who does that remind you of from our current roster?
From our current roster, Jonathan Isaac.
Jonathan Isaac reminds me of Jalen Suggs, reminds me of Franz Wagner. So from a defensive standpoint, which that's what we are, always have been, a defensive first team, this dude seems like he would fit right in. On-ball defense, he has shown flashes to lock down potential opponents. So defensively, he fits the mold. And then the most important part to me, the best shooter out of the top 3-4 picks in the draft. He shot 43.6% in college last season and also has an NBA body that it's ready today to go into the court and make an impact. 6'10", 210 pounds. This is not Jonathan Isaac, a kid that came in super skinny. This kid can hang with some small forwards and some of the power forwards in today's NBA. So I think those to me are the pros. The only con that I've seen, he cannot create his shot, not quite yet. And his dribble is not all the way there. He's not tight enough to be, a guy that you can isolate and say, hey, give me a bucket. Not quite there. So today, like if he plays with the Magic come October, I can see him being a 3-and-D guy right away. A guy that you can kind of just isolate Markelle, put him in the corner, and he'll find him right away for a quick three-point shot. Or if he picks up the Franz Wagner game, he can just be cutting along with Franz all day long for easy layups and dunks. So I think he's a guy that fits this team today based on the mold that we have, the build that we're doing. He seems to me like a guy that mostly would love to coach and to throw out there right away and to say, hey, go out there and help us win games. So that's what I've seen from him. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at a guy that, you said it, 6'10", 220 pounds. Dude has a 7'1" wingspan. He's big. He's long. Plays a little stiff. Areas of opportunity for this kid is someone that didn't really impress anyone with his rebounding ability. They say that it's a lot due to the fact that he was playing with an elite big man, so that had something to do with it. But he's lethal with the catch and shoot. He made over 79 3-pointers last season alone. In his freshman year. So he's someone that can really do damage from behind the arc. They even say that he's the best 3-point shooter in any position. So if you're a big man, can really, really do that well. And that's one of the attributes that can really transition into the NBA. Is something that's going to really help you out with. They say that, I think the Ringer was the one that said it, but he has shades of an offensive, a two-way Rashard Lewis that can really, really play good basketball on the offensive end and defensive end. A taller, who was it that say Michael Porter Jr., a taller Harrison Barnes. So it's someone that for a fact, and granted it's a top lottery pick, so you kind of have to say this, but it's someone that you can implement right now and is going to play and impact the game and play really good basketball. And I think that at the very least, you're getting a very high, good character kid that's going to want to work hard. And someone that's going to gel with the team that you already have. Not saying that, Chet and Paolo can't, but between the three of them, I still have concern. And I'm going to say this every single opportunity that I have. I'm going to keep saying it. I'm still concerned with Paolo sweating. That's not going away. I'm concerned with Chet's size. That's not going away. So if rebounding is really my biggest concern with Jabari, that I'm not too worried about it. Because that's effort. That's something that we'll see a lot more of. A lot of that could be contributed to the fact that, he played far away from the basket, so that could be a reason why, the rebounds didn't jump out of the stats or the blocking didn't jump out of the stats. I think that if you're fortunate enough to draft Jabari, then you're in good shape. We just need one of those top three. I'll take any one of those three. But if you're able to get Jabari, I could easily convince. If right now the Orlando Magic drafted Jabari, as much as I do want Paolo in his sweat, then then I will watch as many highlights, go back and watch as many games, and convince myself that we were the steal of the draft. Can't really be the steal of the draft number one, but you get my point.
We got the best player.
That's right.
One more thing I'll say about Jabari Smith too. I like the fact that his dad was an NBA player. So he grew up around the game. So, the NBA game won't be, the bright lights and he's not ready for what may be coming. And number two, I think he can play the three at the NBA level. This kid, based on what I've seen in college, he moves really well and he can hang with some of the quicker guys out there. So
we're not taking that away from Franz.
No. That's my point. Where I'm getting at, there might be times when you can play this lineup: Markelle Fultz, Franz Wagner, Jabari Smith, Jonathan Isaac, Wendell Carter.
Is that our death lineup?
That's the complete opposite of what the Warriors do, right? They go small and they go shooters. We're gonna throw at you 5 dudes that can guard anybody, and they have the size to guard anybody. So remember, we saw a lot of Franz at the point guard, a lot of Franz playing the 2 late in the season. Don't be surprised. The Magic they're messing around with some things because again, if J.I. comes back healthy, he won't be a 4 full time. There's just no way. Like Chuma needs to play some minutes. Wendell may play some 4. So J.I. may play 5 and 4 at some times. He might get creative with that. But my point is, Jabari is the only guy out of those 3, the top 3 guys, that could slide down to the 3 and survive in the NBA. And he can shoot well enough to handle it. So again, you may even throw out there a crazier lineup. Mo Bamba if he stays, J.I., Jabari Smith, Franz, and either Suggs or Markelle. So I think that could be a death lineup for sure in today's NBA.
We will find out soon enough. We got the NBA lottery coming out on May 17th, so that's coming right around the corner. NBA draft on June 23rd, and the free agency should start June 30th, July 1st, around there. The NBA lottery, we are going to be going to a 6-man show there. They're throwing a little lottery party over in downtown at, what's the place called?
Harry Buffalo.
Harry Buffalo's. How do I not remember that? Harry Buffalo. So we're definitely going to be out there. So make sure that you go check that out and have a good time with us, man. So it's going to be fun. We'll see what ends up happening. On that note, that's a wrap. That's it.
It's a
episode
wrap.
flew by. Till next week. We'll catch you.
Thank you for listening to the OZone Podcast, the voice of Magic fans. For all the latest Orlando Magic news and updates, follow us on Twitter at the OZone Pod and on Instagram at Orlando Magic HQ. Remember to subscribe and leave a 5-star review on all your favorite podcast listening platforms.